Welcome back everyone. I'm glad to see you all made it to this video. This one is the introduction to shading. I'm going to use an eye as an example. To start off the sketch, you'll need your sketchbook and a 2H pencil. 2H is a good one to start with because it allows you to have a very light line on the paper that you can see, but you can also kind of work with because no one's perfect. That's why we are here to change the way we see drawing and the way we see ourselves. So, as you can see, sorry about the trouble with how hard it is to see this. I'm going to go over it with a darker pencil actually. But as you're drawing, keep using the 2H because it gives you room for error. So as you refine your lines with darker pencils or go over it, and you might want to change the curvature of one part of your line, you can just do it with a darker pencil. Um, so as you see, this isn't perfect, but this is a really light sketch and a short video. I'll do a more in-depth one later. So you'll start off with the almond shape of the eye. You'll put in the pupil, the iris, and just one highlight for now. This is more of an intermediate video. I'll do one with more advanced techniques in the future. So as you kind of put a couple highlights in here, go over it with a darker pencil because this is going to be the darkest part of the eye. It's alright to go kind of crazy. So if you have a 8H or 6H, or I'm so sorry, anywhere on the B side, 8, 6, 10, it's okay to go over it with these darker ones. Or even if you have a jet black or a charcoal pencil, this is a good place to go. So as you can see, I went over it. I kind of corrected the shape a little bit. Don't know if it's a left eye or a right eye yet. And I wanted to show you the different ways you can shade. So as you can see, this shape here, it's kind of like a very scrunched up W. So just by making this kind of like shape or this pattern around the iris, in the beginning it kind of looked pretty bad, but the more I did it, it started to come together. I'll also use cross hatching here just because it's the darkest area in the eye. So, anything you use is going to look good, but you want to stay consistent. The main point I want to make is that we stay consistent. So this cross hatching technique is just two-way, I like the diagonals for this because I'm going to end up blacking this all out. But not completely because you do want to show some depth. I also want to show that if you hold your pencil this way, it allows you to shade differently. So right here you have three different techniques, three different ways of applying this pencil to this paper and creating different things. Each one of these has a different tone to it. And it's with the same pencil, so it doesn't really matter if you use one or another. And by applying a layer here on the edges, I'm taking note that I'm going to darken these areas more than the rest. So even if I were to go and shade over this entire thing, those areas would stand out as darker. And from there, everything else is just kind of refining. Like this is a basic, really, really basic eye. But you see the foundation of something more in depth there just from the use of the lines that I had. So by changing the lines to straight lines now, these are straight lines like this, but I'm making sure that I retain the curvature on the radial. So as I go from the inside to the outside, I make sure that I'm consistent, just like a clock, the hands on the clock. So if you imagine the clock at, the hands on the clock at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 o'clock, they're going to go from the inside to the outside perfectly. So it's adding more lines to it without ruining any of the drawing and keeping motion there. And then I take a break and I go and I shade a little bit. And this gives me kind of like a slow build up towards the goal of where I'd like to end. But I'm also kind of taking a break from overworking one area of the picture. And then I can go back here in the center and I'm shading with the same cross-hatching technique. I'm kind of putting together that shading by holding the pencil at the angle, but also adding the cross-hatching because I want to darken this out quite a bit. I don't want to press too hard on the paper, which is why we use a darker pencil. So the darkest one I have right now at my disposal is this 10B. If you were to dig into the paper with a different pencil, I mean, you would begin to damage the paper and weaken it. Now I want the outer edge to be even darker, so that's what I'm working more towards. So even though you can still see some paper through the middle portion of the eye, I kind of want this part right here to seem even deeper and further back. So I'm going to shade this more and more, kind of like in this crescent shape. So even though this isn't exactly where we want it to be, it's slowly but surely building up. But I didn't worry about making sure that the cones and rods were perfect. I didn't make sure that the eyeball itself was absolutely perfect. I didn't make sure that the iris was perfect. I just take my time, one by one, adding different elements. So these thicker lines here are the ones that would show up more so later on. The rest are really just kind of adding a textural value to the eye. And then as I make them darker, I'll notice that I'm losing my values elsewhere. So I would go visit those areas or revisit them and make them a little darker. So if I was doing this drawing in color, the part that I'm not shading in is where that color would lie. And I'll show you, I mean, I could show you 10 different ways to draw an eye. Eyes are very, I mean, drawing itself is very interesting in how you can make something out of literally nothing. So here I'm kind of correcting the shape just a little bit. Adding in a potential line for where I would have the eyelash line go for the eyelid. And then there will be a slight shadow cast by the eyelashes. There's also a shadow at the bottom of the eyeball because the eyeball is a round object. And then you also have the membranes that hold the eyeball in place, the muscles. And I'm very, very lightly shading here because I don't want to lose the highlight that I'll end up having at the end of the drawing. And once again, going back and working even more lead into this center because I'd like for this to be darker. So as I make the overall drawing darker, wherever the darker places are, I'll rework them. This is just a short video to get you started on drawing and kind of get your perspective changed on how some things may seem very difficult at one point, but just here in 10 minutes, you have an eye that is better than the one that you did in the beginner drawing if you worked that one with me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to, make some videos and let me see what you guys are doing. As you add your eyelashes and work on your eyelid, let me know how you did. Thanks for watching.